So, again, my name's Caitlin Kaluja. I run the marketing team for Schipul, the web marketing company, and Tendenci, our open source CMS software for nonprofits. I used to run the search engine marketing team before that, so analytics are sort of near and dear to my heart. So, hopefully, this is I can give you kind of some insight on that. There's a picture of me since you can't see me. That's what I look like. And my whole bio is at schipul.com/qkate. I'm sure it's not, this is what you need to know about me. But if you feel like learning more, you can. So we're talking about Google Analytics today, and the biggest question that I get when clients log into Google Analytics is they get in there and they think, "Oh, these reports are great, but what am I supposed to do with all of this data? I have so many reports. What how do I even start to process this information?" So today, hopefully, we'll be able to answer some of that. So today we're going to cover getting started with Google Analytics, some reports to focus on. We're going to talk through there are tons and tons of reports, and we're going to pick probably five or six that are the most important ones to kind of look at and keep an eye on and pay attention to as you're looking in your analytics. We're going to talk about goal tracking, some benchmarks from our clients. This is based solely on our client base. So your mileage may vary, but these are benchmarks that we kind of see and we kind of recommend after working with clients over the years. Again, making decisions with this information. What am I supposed to do with all this data? And then we'll talk a little bit about A/B testing. And if we have time at the end, I've got a couple of other cool analytics tools that are not necessarily Google Analytics, but they're other tools that we've been using, and I'll share some of those as well. So let's talk getting started. The first thing I want to mention is why Google Analytics. Why do we recommend Google Analytics in the first place? The first thing is it's sort of the standard in analytics. You get your information directly from Google. Google is, I think, 70% of all searches in the world happen through Google. So that if you're going to get your data from anybody, Google is a great place to do it. Also, Google Analytics is completely free, so we set it up for all of our client websites. And we launch a website, we sort of set them up on Google Analytics because it's free and it gives you really valuable data, and it's definitely the most popular analytics tool. So the way that Google Analytics works is you embed a piece of JavaScript code on each page of your website, and that JavaScript, when somebody goes to your site and it goes to a page and loads that JavaScript, it transmits data back to Google, which it kind of records in analytics. So this is a Tendenci webinar, so I'm going to talk in a few places about specific things to using Tendenci with Google Analytics, but this is 90% of this is going to be applicable no matter what website, if you're using WordPress or Drupal or anything like that. So no matter what your website's built on, it will be helpful for Tendenci. Like I said, for our clients that are the websites that are created through Schipul, we do that for you. It's sort of part of our go live process. We put this code on your template and we sort of set it up for you. If you are a Schipul client and you don't have access to your Google Analytics, shoot me an email at the end of this and I'll help you get set up and make sure you have access to your stuff. For everybody else, essentially, you go to google.com/analytics, set up an account. It gives you a little piece of code, and you can add it to, if you're using a CMS software, you can put it on the template that shows on every page, and then that tracking code is on every page. If you're using something like WordPress or Drupal, there are plugins that you can use. Like there's one called Google Analytics for WordPress that you just copy and paste the little code and it kind of does all the heavy lifting for you. So that's sort of basically getting started with Google Analytics. And then another thing that my number three here, and we'll get into this in a little more detail later, is setting up goal tracking is a good way to get kind of the most out of analytics. So speaking of Tendenci websites and Google Analytics, what is the difference between the reports that Tendenci gives you versus the reports that Google Analytics gives you? Well, okay, so I mentioned that the way that Google Analytics works is you put a little piece of JavaScript on your pages, and then when a browser hits it, it transmits that data back. So essentially what that means is that Google Analytics is reporting data from people because every time a person hits a browser, that's when Google Analytics records that data. For Tendenci, the data comes from the database. So it's actually coming from the software itself. So it's coming from, instead of on the front end of a user hitting the page, it's coming out of the queries that happen on the database. So what that means to you is that Tendenci reports on things like things that that happen behind the login. Google can Google sees data that's public, and so Google can't really report on things like, like this invoice report that we have showing, because that data is not, you have to log in to get that data. It's a little harder for Google to have that data. So Tendenci does a great job with things like invoice reports and membership reports, and this report down here that's the top spender, who's donating the most on your website, anything that has to do with something that happens after somebody's logged in. Tendenci is probably going to do a better job of reporting on that. Google Analytics is more for like front end visits, things that are happening kind of on the public facing side of it. So let's start with just a little bit of basics, and I'm going to click over to Google Analytics. So here I go. And again, if I say I'm doing something and you don't see it, let me know it. Type in the chat box if there tends to be a little bit of a lag on GoToMeeting. So if you don't see it after a few seconds, let me know. So to get started, I'm at google.com/analytics. I'm going to click sign in. And I'm going to sign in. And I am going to we're going to look at the Tendenci blog as sort of our example site today. Okay, so you see when I log in, I'm on this reporting tab right here, and I can see sort of basic traffic over the last 30 days. Note that it's showing me traffic over the last 30 days ending with yesterday, because today's not over yet, so it's not really fair to look at today. And so just be aware that that's what you're looking at. There's this thing called dashboards, and I'm going to go into my dashboard. So Google Analytics, in the new version of Google Analytics, and by new I mean in the last year or year and a half, they've updated the interface. Now you have this sort of dashboard where you can drag these reports around, and you can reorder them, and you can add, customize what reports you see. This is actually something that when I log into Google Analytics, I don't use the dashboard. I will confess, I tend to just go straight to the report I want, but a lot of people love dashboards. So if you want to set up your dashboard based on some of these reports that, as I'm going through and saying, okay, these are the reports you should focus on. If you want to add these to your dashboard, you can. And the way that you do that, and I'll just pick from any report. So I just picked a random report. At the top, there's this little add to dashboard button. So I just wanted to go through that sort of basic stuff. You've got a dashboard. Any report you look at, you can add it to your dashboard. Also, any report, if you are, a lot of our clients who manage the website, they wear a lot of different hats. They're doing a lot of different things in their organization. They don't necessarily want to go into analytics every day and kind of look at data. So another thing you can do is, if there's a report that as we go through, you're like, oh, this is really important to me. This is really interesting. This is something I want to keep an eye on. You can click email, and you can set up an automatic email where analytics will email you that report. I recommend using the PDF version because it's a little easier to read. And then you can pick daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly. So you can get, a report on Monday morning, every Monday, that's got kind of the basics of your website. If it's easier, that's a lot easier for people sometimes than remembering to log in and look at analytics every week or every month or every whatever. So let me flip back over. So that's just some basics. Click your add to dashboard, add it to your dashboard, set up your email. You have lots of options there. Now we're going to get into some definitions. So we've been looking at some reports just super briefly. We haven't even really dove right into it too much, but I want to talk about some basic definitions of some of the reports you'll see. So visits are the number of instances of a visit, which just means that if I, Caitlin, go to your website 3 times this week, that counts as 3 visits, even though I'm only one person. So visits are, the unique number of visits that happened, not necessarily people. It could be the same person going, there's certain websites I'm sure some of you go to every single day or several times a day, like Facebook or something like that. And so a visit is just a sort of unique instance of a visit. Now, a page view is the total views of all of your pages. So if I go to your website and I go to 3 pages, that's 1 visit, 3 page views. So the visit is that the whole time that you spend on the site, and page views is each time you go to a unique individual page, it counts as a page view. And even if like I go to the home page and then I click on the contact form and then I go back to the home page, that's 3 page views because I went to 3 different pages, even though I went to the home page twice. So that's kind of how that works. The third one on our list, pages per visit, are the number of pages viewed in the average visit. So the average person to your website visits, however many pages, 2 pages, 3 pages, 4 pages. We'll talk a little bit about benchmarks in just a second of kind of what is a good number for these. The next one is bounce rate. So bounce rate means that someone went to your website and they landed on a page. It's probably your home page, and they didn't see anything that they wanted to click on. They didn't click on anything. They just left. Maybe they clicked from an ad or they clicked from an organic search result and it wasn't what they were looking for, so they just left. So that's what bounce rate is. So for bounce rate, the higher it is, the worse it is. You want that bounce rate to be low because that means that fewer people bounced, more people stayed. And again, we'll get into some benchmarks for that in just a second. So the last definition we're going to go through is new visits. And new visits means that this, again, when we set up Google Analytics in the first place, we put a piece of JavaScript code on a page. So every time Google sees a new browser, it counts that as a new visitor. So you have to kind of take that with a grain of salt, because probably you're like me and you have a home computer, a work computer, a cell phone, an iPad. You have all these different devices, and you maybe use Chrome, Safari, Firefox, i.e. whatever browser you use. Every time Google sees a new browser, it counts that as a new person. So you do kind of, new visits are a good way to kind of see, have these people been to your site? Are they new people? Are they old people? Are they the same returning people? But you do kind of want to take it with a grain of salt because, like I said, every time you go to a website in a new browser, Google counts you as a new person. Any questions on those definitions so far? I haven't seen anything in the chat box, so if you have any questions, like I said, feel free to type them in. We're going to keep rolling through with some engagement benchmarks. So that bounce rate and pages per visit, those are really sort of metrics of engagement. How much time are people spending on your site? How engaged are they? How interested are they in your content? We recommend a bounce rate. Try to get your bounce rate under 50%. And what that means is, again, higher is bad. So if your bounce rate's under 50%, that means that less than half of the people who come to your website leave immediately. So more than half of the people who come to your website see something interesting and they want to click for more and they want to learn more about you. So that's kind of why we pick that, or why we recommend that 50% mark. The other one on this page is pages per visit recommendation, and we want that to be above 2. So again, if on average people go to at least one other page other than your homepage, then that's good, because that 2 may seem kind of low, but if you think about it, how often do you go to a website, search for something in search results, click, don't see what you want, go back, click, don't see what you want, So if you can get them engaged enough where on average they're going to at least one other page, you've got them hooked where they're taking the risk to click on one other page, then you're in a good place. So, 2 is good, 3 is better. This example we've got up here is just an example of somebody I pulled, but they've got their bounce rate in a good place. They've got their pages per visit in a good place. And it's sort of some benchmarks for how to say, okay, well, what is my bounce rate? And if your bounce rate is really high, then that means that what that usually means is people got to your website and they didn't know what to do. So they got there and there wasn't a contact page, or they weren't sure what they were supposed to do. So give them some sort of call to action, or maybe rethink your navigation and think about, what are these people when they get there? What should they be doing next? So next we're going to go into our reporting. So we're going to look at I'm going to pull up some reports and kind of show you the most important reports that you should take a look at. Again, if you have questions, type them in the chat box as we roll along. We split these top reports into three kind of categories. The first one's traffic. The second one is audience. So where do people come from? Who are these people? Where are they? What kind of devices are they on? And then we're going to talk about keywords and content, which is kind of a big chunk of it. So I put it last, not because it's less important, but because it's kind of a big meaty piece. And so I want to make sure that we have enough time to get through it. So I'm going to so it's third, not because it's least important, but because there's a lot to talk about. So let's talk traffic trends. The first thing we're going to look at is traffic pattern, how many visits came to your site. I'm going to flip over to our Google Analytics. So as I mentioned, let me go back to the beginning. Okay. So when you first log in, it's going to look a little bit like this. And as I mentioned, you're looking at the last 30 days of data. So probably you want to look at a little bit more than that. So I'm going to look and I'm going to filter this to let's do last quarter, April, May, June. And I just hit apply, and then I can see my sort of data over time. You'll see that it's defaulted to daily. I can change that to weekly, and so I'll get one dot for every week. Sometimes I do that when I'm looking at, if I'm looking at a whole year's worth of data, I may say, okay, show me everything that happened this year, January 1 through today, hit apply and do monthly and kind of see what the trend looks like month over month. Sometimes I'll use that monthly tab, but mostly sticking to day is fine. So let me go back to my example where I'm going to filter it to last quarter, April, May, June. So now it's good to look at your data over time to see what's happening. You kind of want to look about once a month, look at how did this month do compared to last month, where were we in June versus May, but you also really want to be aware of yearly trends, because if you are a business that in December everybody goes on vacation for Christmas and disappears, then if you compare January to December, it's going to look like January had this huge spike, but it's not really accurate. It's just because December was really low. So you have to kind of pay attention to what's happening year over year. My rule of thumb is what's happening online should sort of match what's happening offline. So again, if your partners or your clients are sort of MIA in the month of December, you probably won't get a ton of traffic in the month of December. On the other hand, if you're a nonprofit and you get 50% of your donations in December, then you should get a lot of online traffic in December. So it just sort of depends on your business. The best thing you can do is kind of measure against yourself. Google sort of helps us out with that. So as you see, my date range is last quarter, and then I can check this little box here and do compare to. The default is previous period. So you'll see it says, oh, you want 3 months? I'm going to compare it to the 3 months before that. And you'll see that it actually does the number of days. So you see that it went back to December 31st instead of January 1st, so that the days are exactly the same. The other option you have here is previous year. And so you can pretty easily say, okay, show me this quarter of this year compared, Q2 of this year compared to Q2 of last year. And then it's really easy to compare data and look at, our visitors increased and our unique visitors increased and our page views increased and our bounce rate went down, and look at all this great news. So when you're looking at traffic trends, again, I recommend looking at sort of month over month and comparing not just month over month, but that same time period year over year as well. Let's see, flipping back. So next we're going to talk about, let me talk really briefly about notes. So let's see, and we have one in here. So if you look really closely, you'll see this little note guy right here. If I click on that, it pops open and it says homepage updated with featured image. So what we did is on the blog, we updated the homepage so that instead of just showing the post that has a little featured image next to it, I added a little note so that I can kind of tell if I don't know if that will increase traffic, or I don't know if that will increase anything, but my guess is that any change like that we make to the homepage or any big campaign we do, it's good to add a little annotation note in here so that if you go back I promise you in 2 months, I'm not going to remember what day we did that or what month we did that. So it's good to get in the habit of, if you make big changes to your website, or if you have a big, even if you have a billboard campaign and it's got your website on it, I would add as much detail here as you can. It's really easy. You just click create new annotation. You can pick a date, and then you can say, like we'll say radio campaign started. And then I tend to put my initials just because it's a shared account that we all use. But if you're a team of one, it may not necessarily make sense to add your initials. And then you can hit save, and it will save that annotation and add that little note right here on your timeline. So the next report we're going to look at is traffic sources. So this is where Google Analytics tells you where people came from. And so Google Analytics breaks it down into these three categories. These are two different examples, so don't get confused that they're in one screenshot. The three categories that Google Analytics uses are traffic from search engines, traffic from referring sites, and direct traffic. And direct traffic means people typed in your URL, they knew you, they typed in tendenci.com, they typed in, your URL.com, or maybe they had it bookmarked, and so they get there kind of directly. So that's what direct traffic is. Referring sites means they clicked from another website to get to you. So maybe you were linked on, somebody wrote, maybe you were linked in an article in an online news publication and somebody clicked over, or maybe somebody recommended you in a Yelp review, or maybe somebody posted some of your content on Facebook. A referring site is any website that they clicked on your link to get, or somewhere else on the web to get to you. And then search engines means they searched in a search engine, either paid traffic or unpaid traffic. It sort of lumps those together. So that's what this breakdown is. We recommend about 60 to 75% of your traffic come from search engines, and that's based on, so direct traffic. They obviously know who you are. They know enough to, they know your URL. They're typing you in directly. Referring site, somebody sort of vouched for you. They clicked on a link somewhere where someone vouched for you and said, go here. And then search engines tends to be newer people who are just learning about you, who typed in, maybe they typed in wedding photography Houston and they happened to sort of stumble across your website. So because those people tend to be newer, we want more of them because they're strangers, so they're going to convert a little bit less than the other group. So we want more of them. This top graph right here is a good example of kind of what we would recommend. They've got 70% search engine traffic, and the other two are kind of split evenly. This example down here on the bottom, they have a lot more direct traffic than sort of average. This is actually a client that did a billboard campaign, and they had their URL all over their billboard. So people were typing in their billboard, typing in their URL directly, counting as direct traffic. So even things you're doing offline should sort of affect this mix. But again, sort of on average, if I I can't say this enough. Your mileage may vary. Things are different depending on different industries, but kind of in general, this 60 to 75% search engine traffic, the other two split down the middle, is a good place to be. Traffic sources also show you what pages link to you. So speaking of these referring sites, who's linking to you? What links are bringing in traffic? This is for one of our clients, Miller Outdoor Theater, and they do a really great job of people, they put on performances and they're free and they're great things to do in Houston. And so they're linked all over the web on Visit Houston, Texas. There's a link there on things to do in Houston. On Facebook, the Houston First Theaters, they're linked on Houston's about.com page with Tuts. They're Houston on the Cheap. They get linked all over the place. So you can kind of look at that data and see who is linking to you, who is bringing in traffic, and then from the people that came in from visithoustontexas.com, how much time are they spending on your site? How many pages per visit is that specific subset of people getting to? And I'll show you how to do that report. So we're going to go to traffic sources. We'll start with overview. So here's our pie. And then we're going to go to sources, and let's click on referrals. Oh, you'll see that I still have my Q2 2013 versus Q2 2012 set up. So it's actually showing me 2 points of data. That gets a little crazy. This is good if you're looking at graphs, but if you're trying to drill down into data, it's a little hard to read. So I tend to just sort of not compare data. Let's do the month of July. So these are our top referring sites. So you'll see this is again the Tendenci blog. So Schipul.com, Tendenci.com. Well, you see some of our clients in there. You see our Facebook page in there. You see our GitHub page in there. Our support portal in there. You see all kinds of stuff in there. So now let's talk about some fun stuff. Let's talk about social sources. So this, when you're looking in traffic sources, this is sort of a new report. And again, we're in traffic sources over here, and you'll see this social. And I'm going to click overview. So this tells me how many visits came in from social media. And you can see kind of what Google Analytics defines as social media: Facebook, Google Plus, Twitter, LinkedIn. On some of our other ones, we've seen Reddit, we've seen YouTube, pretty much any social network sort of counts in here. And this shows you specifically data about the traffic that came in from social media. So if you're doing a lot of work on social media and you say, oh, I have, 5,000 fans, or those people actually coming to my website ever, you can kind of see how many visits came in from social media, how many came in through, and you'll see I can kind of hover over here and it tells me what each of those are. So then how many conversions came in through that social media traffic, which we'll talk about goals and conversions in just a minute. But if you've got that set up, it will show you how many conversions came in. So this is interesting. These last two right here that both show 0 in this example, but I think I have data on my keynotes. Let me flip over. Oh no, those show 0 too. Well, so last interaction social conversion means that so let's say they clicked to your website from Facebook. They went from Facebook, they clicked to your website, and then they filled out a contact form, they converted. So that means that the last interaction, the last time they came to your website and they actually filled out that contact form, they came from Facebook. Contributed social conversions means, so again, Google puts a little cookie in your browser so it knows if you're a new visitor, it knows if you've been there before. It doesn't necessarily know, it doesn't report like that Caitlin Kaluja at 1175 Katy Freeway came to your website before, but it sort of in aggregate it knows like this person, this browser came here before. It reports anonymous data, but it knows that you come there before. So if you came to the website from social media and then later you came back and you converted, then that counts as a contributed social conversion. So I'll say that again. So if a contributed social conversion means that this person came to your website before using social media, but not on this last time when they actually converted. So that social media, it contributed to their brand impression of you, and it was probably helpful in getting them to convert. But if you were just traditionally looking at how many, people who came from Facebook and then filled out a contact form, you wouldn't show up because you came here from Facebook like a week ago or 4 days ago or however long ago. So that's what that contributed social conversions means. So it's a good way of looking at maybe the first time they found out about you, they came from social media, but the time that they actually decided to fill out a contact form or to, donate money or, whatever, that time they didn't actually come from social media, it will count as contributed. Okay. So that's sort of part one. That's traffic sources. If you have any questions on that, again, type in the chat box. I'm going to keep rolling along a little bit here. So first, when we talk about audience demographics, we're going to talk about geography. So when you look at geography of where your client or where your visitors are coming from, it should, again, what's happening online should match what's happening offline. It should be similar. So if you are Tony Chachere's Creole seasoning, you should see lots of traffic from Texas and Louisiana. It's not super surprising. If you're Think LA, you should see lots of traffic in LA. So you kind of want to look at, when you're looking at these reports, is it what you expected? And then where is the opportunity? So if you're Tony Chachere's, well, what about these other states in the South, like Mississippi or Alabama? Maybe there's opportunity there where we're not getting as much traffic as we thought we would be. So what can we do to sort of boost our online presence in those states or in those cities or in those places? So to pull that report, we're gonna go to audience. So anytime we're talking about the sort of tabs over here, traffic sources, content, audience, they're pretty easy to follow. You just think about, we're looking at the geography of where the audience members live. So that's under audience. We're going to go demographics, location. You can also filter down to language if that's important to your business. If you want to look at people who are, have their computer settings set to whatever language. Usually for us, location is a little bit more important. So again, we're on the Tendenci blog, so lots of love in the United States, not surprising. And then mostly Texas. And I'm just clicking in. I clicked on location and it started with country, and you can just click to kind of drill down into more. If you want to go directly into, you can also use these little tiny primary dimension things. You can click and drill down that way as well. So we'll see Houston, you'll see a little bit of some other cities in there. New York, LA, Washington, Dallas. Anytime you see this not set on a report, that means that Google, when I log into Google, you'll see that I have this HTTPS, this secure connection to Google. If I am logged in and I have that HTTPS, Google will not always filter back my Google Analytics data to analytics because I'm logged in and I'm in a secure connection. It will, if I'm logged in, sometimes it doesn't send my data back. And sort of what we recommend is we take this not set. There's not much we can do about that. There's not much we can do to figure out what is within that not set grouping. So we just sort of assume that it's based on, if Houston and New York are the top cities overall, then they're probably the top cities within not set as well. So we just sort of we still report on it, but we there's not a lot we can do about that not set. Google's not reporting the data, so we sort of assume that the it matches what's going on outside of the not set group. And so it's probably similar. So if you see that not set, don't freak out, is what I'm trying to say. So we talked a little bit about geography. Now let's talk about mobile. Oh, another note on geography. This is probably not something you need to look at like every week. This is probably not something that's going to change super dramatically, week to week, unless you're doing some sort of ad campaign where you're saying, oh, I'm targeting this new state or this new city. Then I would, keep a close eye on it. But in general, if you're targeting a certain geographical area, you want to keep an eye on it, maybe once a month, once a quarter, but you're probably not going to see a ton of shifts and changes, on a quick timeline. So mobile is a fun report. Mobile is growing. Obviously, this is an example of a nonprofit website that has 81% mobile traffic. That is crazy. That is that is so high. Most of our clients are not nearly that high. I'm going to show you how to pull the mobile data reports. And we're going to look at a couple of quick benchmarks. We work with a lot of nonprofit websites. Our nonprofit clients have about an average of in Q1, this is a sampling of probably about 50 or 60 of our nonprofit clients. And we saw an average of 27% mobile traffic in Q1 of 2013. So that's just, again, that's a benchmark that's based on our data. That we saw that sort of across the board for our nonprofits. But if you are a nonprofit and you're looking at your data, I would expect to see about that number. Overall, all of the web traffic, about 13% is mobile. So if you're B2B, if you're a business, I would expect about that 13%. Another interesting benchmark is that our nonprofit clients have seen a 30% increase in mobile traffic. So it's definitely growing, and it's growing quickly. So let's look at some mobile stats. So we're going to go in, again, we're in audience now. We're looking at audience demographics. We're going to go to mobile and overview. Now, this is just a quick tip on Google Analytics. This is something that I think is sort of weird and um, I don't know, interesting. So when I first click on mobile, it's showing me sort of whether something is a desktop, mobile, or a tablet. So all of it's showing me everything essentially. So if I look at this percent of total, that's 100% because it's showing me everything. It's showing me, is it mobile or is it not? So everything adds up to 100. So if you actually want to see that percentage number of how much of your traffic is mobile, all you have to do is click into one of these reports. So if I click devices, now the number shows me percent of total for just mobile. So that's just a quick tip. If you click mobile overview, you're always going to see 100% there. Click into another report and then it will show you it will filter down to just mobile traffic. So from here, I'm in the devices report. I can see what is the most popular device, mobile device that has visited my website. I see iPad, iPhone. We see this not set again. Again, we're not going to worry about that. The Droid 4, the Galaxy S3, Galaxy S4, all kinds of different devices in here. And then you'll see I have a couple of other options like brand, provider, input selector. The other one that I will look at, so I'll look at devices and I'll look at operating system. And operating system sort of it lumps all of the Apple devices together, all of the Androids together, all of the Blackberries together, etc. So a lot of times for clients, if you look at just straight up device, iPad or iPhone is going to be at the top of your list. But if you filter down into operating system, a lot of times Android, if you lumped all those Androids together, they actually show up higher. So if you're thinking about things like, well, we were thinking about if we should have a mobile app and we can't decide if we should start with iOS or Android, this is a good place to look and see, well, how much of my traffic really is coming from those sources, which one is more popular. You may think it's one way, but it's really the other. Which group is spending more time on my site? All that good stuff is in here. So let's see, we can see the iPad is actually outpacing the iPhone, which is kind of surprising to me. I would expect the iPhone to be higher, but again, you can sort of verify the data. So I wanted to share one more mobile sort of trend. This is something that we are noticing more and more in 2013. So mobile has been growing. Mobile's been growing for years. Mobile is huge. Um, Something that's sort of different about mobile that we're seeing now that's different than we've been seeing before. When mobile websites first came out, people expected very simple, like, I just want directions to your business and I just want contact information. I just want it very, very simple. Well, nowadays, mobile users want the same experience. And what we mean by that is, so this report on the right, this is one of our summer camp clients and they're awesome. And the data in blue, so what I've done is I filtered the pages by operating system. So you can see that this one right here is Windows, and the next guy is iOS. So essentially, the ones that are highlighted in blue are desktop users, and the ones highlighted in purple are mobile users. And you can see if I look at the top four pages of desktop users, homepage, find camp, what's happening, directories, and the top four pages of mobile users, it's the same. Homepage, what's happening, directories, find camp. So what we're seeing in the data is that whether you're on a desktop, whether you're on a mobile, whether you're no matter what device you're on, you're sort of expecting the same experience. You're not expecting the super simple website. You're expecting to be able to get to all of the content. And some of that is also because 85% of mobile users say they watch TV with their devices. So what that means is that what we're kind of finding is that the concept of this second screen, that a lot of people are sitting on their couches between 6 and 9 p.m. in front of their TV, playing on their iPad or playing on their phone. So they're not exactly, there are still a good number of people who are out on the go, but that a good majority of people are sitting at home. They just don't want to get up and go to their computer. They would rather access it on their phone or on their tablet. So that's just a trend in. I would expect you to kind of see that similar data in analytics. Also, one thing that we're seeing is that Google is rewarding mobile content in mobile search results. So if you have a mobile optimized website, you're getting shown a little bit more in mobile search results. So one thing that we're also seeing with clients is if you have a mobile optimized website, that you tend to see more mobile traffic just sort of by nature of having that, because Google's showing you more. You're training people that they can come back to your website over and over again. They can get that data on a mobile site. So just some sort of mobile, these are things that are very new, that are very different in 2013, that are different from what we were seeing, what we were talking about even a year ago. So just wanted to throw that out there as well. So, we have a quick question to show how we get to that mobile data one more time. So I'm going to show it to you one more time. So we're under audience. We're in the audience tab, and then mobile right here. So that's where we were. Okay, so let's talk about keywords and content. And again, I left this for the end, not because it's the least important, but because it is very important, and I want to make sure that we can really, really dive into it. So the first report we're going to look at is the top content report. And I will show you how to get there. So we're going to close our audience tab and go into content, site content, all pages. So this just shows me, again, I'm in the month of July, what pages were the most popular. And again, this is a blog, and so you'll see blog posts, so it's going to look a little bit different. I'm actually going to flip to a different website because I think it's a little easier to see. Oops, I clicked on the wrong one. No, not that one either. This one. So these are our friends at Brennan's. They're amazing. Go eat there for Restaurant Week next month. It is delicious food. They're a really good example because I think their pages are really easy to tell kind of what they are. So I'm looking at the top content. This top one that's just a slash, that's your homepage. You should sort of expect to see your homepage at the top. Most people are going to enter your website in through your homepage, or even if they entered in from another page, they're probably going to go to your homepage at one point in time. So you should see this homepage kind of up at the top. For Brennan's, you'll see things like the dinner menu, their events, their full menu, their brunch menu, their tour, lunch down here at the bottom, specific events and things like that in this list of top content. The other report that you can look at, if so, these are based on based on page views. So again, if I go to your website and I end up at, if I go to your homepage, go to another page, back to your homepage, that's 2 page views for your homepage. So based on page views, and they're listed by URL, so you can see the unique URL right here. So something else that we like to look at, other than just top pages, is this content drill down. So I'm going to click on content drill down. So with this, you can see that these guys, it shows me, it has like a little folder icon. What that means is that it's showing me data based on what is the first part of the URL? What is the first kind of element in the URL? So if if you have a Tendenci website, all of your events will have the URL /event/a number. All of your photos will have the URL /photos/a number. All of your, news articles will have the URL /news/ something. So this is a good way to tell if you're looking at, so if no single event showed up on that, or sort of toward the bottom of that top 10 list, we started to see some events. No single event was up, high in the top content, but if we aggregated all of their event pages together, it's actually the second most popular type of content on the site. So this is a good way to see what types of content are interesting. So you might even see, maybe if all of your photos were aggregated together, they actually get more traffic than your homepage. That's pretty common that we see that if you're using your photos module, if you're using your events module, or using your videos module, a lot. It's common to see those kind of things happen. And this is a good way, especially if you're using Tendenci, because of the way the URL structure is set up. This sort of aggregates all of that module content together. So again, for this example, if you looked at all of their events together, it would be the second most popular page on the site, even though maybe no single event is really all that high in the listings. You can also do this sort of with Tendenci event logs as well. And again, as we were talking about a minute ago, Tendenci event logs pull data from the database. If you're not familiar with Tendenci's event logs, you go under reports and then event log summary. And this shows you essentially how many times this content was served up by the database. So that could mean by a person, it could mean by a search engine spider, it could mean by, if you search for content or if you pull a feed of content, anytime that content was sort of touched at all. And so this is color coded and it shows you by module as well. So orange is events, turquoise is the homepage, red is help files. This is another kind of way that you can see which modules are the most popular, and maybe in this example, again, if you aggregated all of the events together, they actually got more traffic than the homepage today, even though I bet that if you looked at a single event, it probably didn't score, super high. Okay, so let's look at, so that is top content. Another thing about top content is that your top content tends to not change very much. Similar to what I was saying about your geography, it's not something that you need to look at every day and expect to see wild changes. Probably your homepage or about page or contact page, there are certain things that are going to show up in the top kind of no matter what. So don't stress too much about what order they're all in. You kind of want to look at things that change over time. So if you have a new campaign, if you have a new page, is it rising in the list? Are there new things that have popped up in your top 10? Or there current events that are showing up there that weren't there before? Kind of look at what's changing, because over time your homepage is probably going to be first. Your main service pages are probably going to be in there. You're not going to see a wild swing from like day to day. So the next content path or content report we're going to look at is called navigation paths. Let me go over here. I don't know why my chat is open. I'm going to close it. Let's see. So if I'm in content and I go to, let me go back to my all pages. I'm going to click this little tab in the middle called navigation summary. Okay, so this report is really fun and it's sort of hard to read, so I'll walk it through with you. So you can see my current selection is just a plain slash, that means the home page. So this little guy in the middle is the home page. This little page icon represents the home page. All of the things to the left of this represent what pages people went to right before they got to the home page. So, you can see entrances, 71% of people just started on the homepage. And that's pretty normal. Again, a lot of people are going to land on your webpage for the first time on the homepage. But for these 28% of people who didn't start from the homepage, or maybe they click somewhere and click back or whatever, these are the pages they were on before. Now for the homepage, because so many people start on the homepage, I'm sort of going to ignore the left side of the page and go over to the right side, which shows me what pages people went to after the homepage. So you'll see that after the homepage, 28% of people go to the dinner page. So that's important information to know. Where are people going next? What do people care about? And some of this is based on what they care about and what content you're showing them. So if maybe you made the dinner button really prominent, then probably people are going to click there more. Events, tour, brunch, lunch, you can see kind of what pages they're going to next. So if there's something on this list that you wish were higher, make it more prominent on your homepage. Make it more obvious to see. Move it, up a little higher. Make the button a little bigger, a little more obvious. And if there are things here that aren't so important, maybe it's time to rethink like your navigation structure, or kind of what if there's something that people are going to a lot that is not really important to you and you don't really want them going there, then either make other things more prominent, or try to figure out what information are they looking for that they're going there to get it. So like hours and directions, you'll see full menu, the story, lots of good content here. You can kind of see after the homepage, where do they go? And you can pull this report for any page. I can see this little drop down. I can change it and say, from the dinner page, where did people come from before? Where did they go to next? But the homepage is really probably the most valuable piece of this report. So on the homepage, where do people go next? Okay, so what do I do with this data? I have all this data. What am I supposed to do with it? Again, is it what you expected? If you see something that's really popular that's popping up, this is an example of shipple.com. And shipple.com, you'll see that our homepage is actually in the middle. It's number 5. And all around it, you'll see things like help files, and you'll see these quotes links. And so a lot of times if you see random pages that show up above your homepage, that's because for whatever reason, people are they're searching for things around that topic. They're finding you probably in search results. So like this, how do I transfer my old iPad data to my new iPad? That's just sort of a random help file that we created. Well, people in the search engines are Googling, how do I transfer my old iPad data to my new iPad, and finding that content. So if you see random content like that, that's sort of sticking and it's really popular, you'll see a lot of these are around Facebook. So a lot of these random ones that are up here are Facebook. So that tells me that people are really interested in content about Facebook and how do I do things in Facebook, and can I add more content around that topic that's related to us, that sort of, gets people in there. Another thing that you can do is, so you'll see 7 and 10 are quotes. We have a quotes module on shipple.com. We love to share quotes with each other. We love knowledge sharing. You'll see this is kind of what the quotes module looks like. So we've got all these quotes in there. We get tons of traffic from these quotes that are probably people that will never buy a website from us, but they're searching for these quotes and they're interested in and they're looking at it. So what we have done is we've added these share buttons underneath, so that if somebody does want to share our content, if they did find it interesting, they can share it online, and maybe they're not going to buy a website, but maybe the next person will, or maybe that sort of gets our brand out there and gets us out there in the community, makes it easy for it to be shared. And we've also added these tags to the quotes down here. So If they're interested in quotes, they may be interested in reading more quotes. So this quote is tagged politics. It shows me right below it a couple of other quotes that are tagged politics. So maybe they'll spend a little more time on the site. Maybe they'll, look at a little more pages. They'll maybe share our content, maybe get our name out there a little more. So you kind of want to see if there are popular topics. How can you take advantage of them? How can you add more content around that topic that's related to you? And if there's stuff that's missing that you think, oh, I really thought that this was really a really great article that we wrote and it's not showing up there, how can you make that content more findable? Maybe people aren't able to find that, or maybe it's not as interesting as you thought it was. Maybe you should go in a different direction. You sort of have to um, test different things, watch it over time, try different things and see what works for you. But these are some kind of questions to ask yourself as you're going through this data. So we've talked about content. Now we're going to talk about keywords. And the analytics keyword report shows you which keywords are bringing in traffic to your website. So I'll show you how to do that. So we're going to go into traffic sources, and we're going to go into, well, here, I'll show you this. So if you start from the overview, you can kind of drill into it. It shows me keywords right here from the front. I tend to go into sources search directly just because I think it's easier. But if you want to, you can click on traffic sources and kind of drill down your way in there. You'll notice that it is, I'm going to flip back over to Tendenci. So you'll notice that it's showing me all search traffic, organic and paid. If you're doing pay-per-click campaigns, it's going to show you sort of everything. I'm going to click into just organic because I just want the organic traffic. So organic means, not paid. It's people who you naturally showed up in those search results. So you'll see lots of not provided for us for whatever reason. Again, we try not to stress out too much about that. But you'll see some things. This is a blog, so in blogs you'll see all kinds of weird things. Let me go to tendenci.com. Okay, so on tendenci.com you'll see Tendenci, tendenci.com/nonprofits, membership management software. You'll see some good keywords that people are searching for things around Tendenci. So you want to see, again, very similar to the content. Is it what you expected? Is it what is your main, we have membership management software. Is your main kind of product category in there? Is your brand name in there? Kind of what content is in there? If there's something that's missing, how can you add more content around that key term, or how can you make the content you have already sort of more findable? Another tip, if you're looking at keywords, is go to advanced, and you want to exclude keywords that include your brand name. So what I'm going to do is click exclude keyword containing Tendenci and click apply. Tendenci is kind of a funny word. If you're typing that in, you probably know who we are. So again, how I was talking about how those strangers are a little more valuable to us. We want more strangers because they're new. They don't know who we are. If I exclude Tendenci, then I'll see these keywords that just have the kind of stranger keywords. These are people who didn't know who we were. They were looking for a nonprofit social media strategy, and they stumbled upon us. So this is a good way to see if excluding your brand name will sort of clean some of that out and let you look at what we call them non-branded keywords. Just what are those stranger? What are those keywords that are bringing in new people? And you want to look for any surprises. Look for things that very similar to our content, how we were saying, oh, well, we saw these help files around Facebook. How can we bring in more content around Facebook? Because that's what people really care about. Look for surprises. Think about ways that you can incorporate those words. So what do I do with this data? Again, what keywords are missing? Can you add content around those topics? What keywords are sticking? What new keywords are you seeing? This is an example. This is Chimp Haven, and they are a chimp sanctuary in Louisiana. And when I look at their keywords, you see Chimp Haven Shreveport, chimp facts. Number 7 is careers with a primatology degree. So they took this data and they said, oh, people care about careers, and maybe we could use the website as a recruiting tool. So what they do is then they posted these videos of some of their keepers and some of their staff members talking about what their day-to-day job is and what they kind of what they do with the chimps. And it was a great opportunity for them to say, oh, this is a keyword that's kind of sticking. People care about this. Let's add some content. Let's add some video content around this topic, because obviously it's something that people care about. Some more content brainstorming. You want to think about things that are interesting. People love top 10 list. That's why BuzzFeed is so popular. 27 reasons why you should love, whatever. Top 10 ways. Anytime you can piggyback off of hot topics or things that are in the news. This is G&A Partners blog over here. They do HR outsourcing, and they do a great job of anytime there's some HR scandal or, HR issues, they will talk about it and have commentary on it. Infographics are fantastic. People love infographics. People love visuals. How-tos and FAQs are a great way where you may say, well, my business is not that sexy. There's not a lot of, really interesting infographics out there about my business. If you can create some sort of FAQs or how-to information, people within your industry will latch onto that. That is something that they'll find interesting. That's a good way. That's an easy kind of content to kind of tailor to your business. Another good way to get your content out there is to tag people. So if you talk about other people, chances are they're probably going to share it. So if you're talking about maybe one of your volunteers or one of your donors or one of your partners or one of your customers, if you talk about them online and say, it's sort of the internet runs on karma. If you talk about them, you include information, maybe show pictures of one of your a bio on one of your volunteers, probably that's not only going to be good for you to show off this volunteer, but it'll be good for them, and they'll probably share it with their network, and that might bring you some traffic. Also, anytime you can talk about local content or another important one is revisiting or updating popular content. So if you have a blog post or an article or something that's really, really popular, maybe you can do a part 2, or maybe you can make it a series, or maybe you can turn it into a video, or maybe there are other ways you can use that content. This example down here, GNA does hiring horror stories around Halloween, and they posted it once with these they collected stories from their staff, and they posted some funny interview stories of things that happened, and it just blew up. It got shared all over the place. They got tons of traffic from it. So now they do it every single year, and they may post 2 or 3 in the month of October, and it's now a running thing because it's so popular and they're getting lots of good traffic from it. The next piece of this is if there's a keyword that you don't see, that is not showing up in your Google Analytics, the best thing you can do is incorporate that keyword into your content. This presentation, and I'm not going to go into too much detail, but this SlideShare presentation is on optimizing your Tendenci site for SEO and kind of what options you have. There's a lot of SEO built into Tendenci, what's built in, what's already done for you, what kind of do you need to do, what customizations can you make to your content to incorporate these keywords? So check that presentation out if you haven't already. You'll see it's in the old Tendenci red. So it's probably about 6 months or a year old. So we'll probably be re-giving that presentation soon, but this is a really good resource. So now we're going to talk about conversion tracking. So until now, we've been talking about pulling reports and sorting them by visit. So which keywords bring in the most visits, which content gets the most visits, which, referring sources gets the most visits. Well, now we're going to talk about conversion tracking. So in Google Analytics, you can set up what's called a conversion. There are 3 types or goals. There are 3 types. The first is URL destination. That is the most popular. So say if you want people on your website to fill out a contact form, or to donate to your organization, or to fill out a volunteer application, when they get to the end of that form, there's probably a confirmation page. And so what you do is you add that confirmation page as a goal, and you say, if somebody hits this confirmation page, I know they filled out my contact form, and I want to count that as, they've converted, they've reached out to me. So for Schipul, for Tendenci, they've reached out to us. Maybe they want a website. They count as a conversion. And then the other two types are time on site and pages per visit. So you can say, if somebody spends 5 minutes on my website, I want that to count. Or if somebody goes to this many pages per visit, I want that to count as, they've converted, they've spent all this time on my website. I typically tend to recommend using the URL destination and to do a confirmation page, because those are people that they took an act, they sort of, time on site can be passive. Maybe they're reading every piece of content, maybe they're not. That URL destination, they have to actually do something. They have to go, make it through the process. So I recommend setting up URL destination. And what that does is you can also create these funnel graphs. So I can say, okay, my contact form, 72 people they went to the contact form page. 62 of them dropped off, they left, but 10 of them actually filled out the contact form. So you can look at things like funnel conversion rates. If you have a long form that has 2 or 3 pages, you can add every page of them to this funnel and you can see that data. So how do we do that? I'm going to go back into analytics, and this is in let's do it for the blog. Well, we'll do it for Tendenci. So you go to admin over here, click in, and then you'll see this goals right here. And it's going to load. So you get 5 sets of 4. We have a whole bunch of goals on Tendenci.com because we have a whole bunch of contact forms. But we're going to pretend like we're going to add a new one and click create goal. I'm going to call it contact form, destination URL. And then essentially what you do is you say, again, when somebody hits this confirmation page, then I will know, I will count them. So the easiest way to do this is to go to your contact form and fill it out and figure out what go through it as if you were a person and fill it out and see what the steps are, write down copy and paste the URLs directly from the process. If you're using Tendenci and you're using a Tendenci contact form, like this one, the way that Tendenci works by default is it just adds /sent to the end of the URL, and that's the confirmation URL by default. You can change it, and you might have changed it, or your project manager might have changed it. So it's always good to, double check and fill out the form to be sure. But probably if your URL is, if it's a Tendenci site, it's /form/something, the confirmation page is going to be just add /sent to the end. So I'm going to go back over. I'm going to add my confirmation URL. And then I can assign a value to it. Here's my funnel. I can turn my funnel on and I can say, okay, if they went to /form/sales, that's the actual form. So this is where you can add, as many steps as you want in the process and click create goal, which I'm not going to do because I've already set this up, but that's how you add goals. And then once you've added those goals, now you'll see this little tab up here that says goal set 1, goal set 2. You get 4 sets of 5. So we're using pretty much all of them. But now when you click on this tab, it shows me data not just by visits, but my goal conversion rate as well. So for all of those reports we've been looking at with keywords and content and all of that, we can look at not just, did this bring in traffic, but did it actually bring in conversions? Did people actually fill out the contact form? Did they actually do something once they came in? So like these keywords, if I sort by conversion rate, you'll see, and some of these are weird, you'll see some of these words that are maybe not the ones that are getting the most amount of visits that are actually getting a pretty high conversion rate. So that's goals. I think this is the last little section right here. Yeah, we've got 2 more sections. We're about an hour in. We'll probably be another 20 minutes or so through this. We're going to talk a little bit about A/B testing. So Google Analytics allows you to see not only what's going on your site, but to test things. I recommend if you're going to test something, try to test. So for instance, we're looking at the top content and maybe you see, oh, well, this page is not showing the top content and I want to rearrange my homepage or rearrange my navigation or rearrange my whatever to see if it makes a difference. Try to test one thing at a time just so that when you're looking at the data, you can actually tell, oh, that's what affected it. Because a lot of times we run into this trap of, because our websites are so easy, because websites are kind of easy to change around and update, we try to change too much at once and then we're not quite sure which thing made the difference. So try to do one thing at a time. Try to let it run, your test run for, a couple of weeks. A month is better, but a couple of weeks is fine. And just kind of see if it made a difference. So this is something that Ed Schipul, our CEO, always says to me, there's no such thing as a marketing argument, only a marketing test. You can't argue anything in marketing, you can only test it. So there are two A/B testing tools we're going to talk about within Google Analytics. The first one is the Google URL Builder. And what that does is it lets you build a URL, create a URL that's got tracking code on it. So you can use, it makes each URL unique. So even though these two buttons go to the same donation page, I can make a unique URL for each one so I can tell which one got the most clicks, which one had more, more engagement. So the way that you do that is you go to the Google URL Builder, and it has a long, crazy URL, so I always just Google it. And here you go. You see it's a support crazy URL. So what you do is you type in, let's say we're going to do Tendenci.com. You pick a campaign source, you pick a campaign medium, and you have to pick a name. So like the source may be homepage, the medium may be banner, and the name. And so this is the part that would be unique. So, maybe we call one of them red button and one of them tiger. And when I hit submit, it gives me this crazy URL. And so it's this regular URL plus tracking code on the end. So in this example, yeah, we've got two. This one's called red button, and I think this one's just called donation header or image or something like that. So you can generate two different URLs, and then when someone clicks on that URL, it transmits that data back to Google Analytics and shows you and tracks each of those separately. So to get to the information in Analytics, we go to Sources and Campaigns, and again, it shows each one separately. So red button, 391 visits, tiger donate link, 88. So you can see which one got the most traffic. And we're actually doing this on we're doing this on Tendenci.com. So like if you hover over the Demo Now button on the top, if you look really closely down there on the bottom left, it says /try now, and it's got that source, medium, campaign. So I'm actually doing that right now. So when I go into our analytics, I can look and see how much traffic came in through that specific button, because the Demo Now link is all over the website, and I can see which ones came in through that specific place. And in analytics, it's under traffic sources, campaigns, and then anything you've tagged shows up over here. You don't have to add it in analytics just by setting up the URL. When somebody clicks on it, it transmits that data back. You don't have to add all of your campaigns in analytics. It will sort of automatically do that for you. But here's my try now button right here, 155 visits. And then you can see some other ones where I've tagged different things. So that is our first A/B testing option. The second one, and this one is pretty new. This is called Google Content Experiments. And the way that this one works is you set up two different versions of the same page. So again, we're doing this for Tendenci. This is two versions of the same pricing page, and you can test them. You add the original page, and then you add kind of each separate version of it, and you can add up to I think you can add as many versions as you want. I just did two in this example, and you add a little snippet of code to your first page, and what it does is you tell Google, you know, send 50% of the people to this, split them half and half, send half the people to version A and half the people to version B. So what they do is you don't have to change anything on your site. You don't have to change your navigation. You don't have to change anything. When they click on this first page, it's got the little snippet of code in it, and half the time Google sends people away to the new page, and half the time they let them stay. And so Google does the segmenting for you, and Google does the tracking for you, and Google does it all for you, and then outputs this report. The original page has had 50 visits so far. They went to this many pages per visit. They spent this much time on the site. The second version has the same number of visits, and this is kind of what they're doing. So this is a really, really neat tool, and it's pretty new. In the last 6 months, this has come out. So, and that is located, if you want to play with that, it's pretty easy to set up. It is under content and then experiments. So let me pretend like I'm going to create a new one. So again, enter the URL it's got a little video, it's got enter the URL that you want to improve, hit start experimenting, and it walks you through the process of, what percentage of traffic do you want to play with, what metric are you going to use to define success. You've got some advanced options like how long do you want the test to run, and then some configuration stuff. And it pretty much does all of the heavy lifting for you. So this content experiment's very cool. The basic thing you need to know is create 2 versions of the same content, and then Google will kind of walk you through the steps. So this content experiment is really easy to use as well. So the last piece of information we have are just some other resources if you are interested in learning more about Google Analytics, if you want to play with more tracking tools. Google has a fantastic support documentation kind of platform, support.google.com/analytics. They also have a blog where they talk about new reports and new things that you can do in analytics. Also, if you're interested, lynda.com is a paid service. They are we use them internally. I can't remember how much it is, but it's not super expensive, and you pay monthly, so you could do it for just 1 month if you wanted. And they have all kinds of training on software, and their Google Analytics Essential training is really good. It's super detailed. It goes through like every single report in analytics. So if you're interested in learning more about analytics, these are great resources to do it. If you're interested in playing with more tracking tools, these are a couple that I really like. Bitly, many of you may be using Bitly for your URL shortener for Twitter. What you might not know is that Bitly also has pretty good tracking tools. So I can go to any Bitly URL and I can stick a plus sign on the end of any URL, no matter whose it is, and I can see data. And you can see things like the number of clicks and what time of day and who shared it and how many people and where they were. So sometimes if you don't necessarily want to go through all the trouble of creating that Google URL builder and figuring all that out, sometimes I'll just make a Bitly URL, and then I can see that if it's something quick that I just want to post this to Facebook, or I just want to post this to Twitter and see which one performs better. Creating a quick Bitly URL and then looking at the data there is often kind of an easy, quick way to do it. So Bitly is a great tool, and it's fun because you can sort of spy in on anybody's Bitly URLs and just add the little plus sign and see anybody's data. The other 2 are add this and share this. And what those do are they add those little widgets at the bottom of your page where, like I showed in the quotes module, where it lets people share your content. And the advantage of doing that is that they don't have to copy and paste the URL and add it to Facebook. They can just share directly from your website. And then also these widgets give you sharing data. They give you analytics data on how many times content's been shared and who's been sharing it and all that good stuff. So those are fun as well. A new tool that I've been playing with recently is crazyegg.com. And Crazy Egg is a heat map tool that shows you, this graph on the right is our pricing page, and it shows you, it's based on where people's mouse sits. So the studies have shown that wherever someone's mouse is, that's where their eyes tend to be looking. And so it shows you kind of where people's mice hovered, and kind of so you can see like there's a really hot spot right here, and you can see there's a hot spot right here, and you can kind of see what people on your website are looking at. You can also see how far down the page they scroll. So this report on the left is a scroll report. Green is 100% of the people, red is 75% of people, yellow is 50% of people, and then there's more colors down here for fewer number of people. So this report's really cool because you may see, someone spends on average 60 seconds on my pages, but does that mean that they spend all 60 seconds at the top, or did they even see the content on the bottom? So this is a cool tool. It's you can get one page for free. You can set it up and kind of play with it on one page, so like on your homepage for free. And then if you want to do more pages, it's $100 a year for 10 pages, and kind of goes up from there. So this is a fun new reporting tool that I've been playing with. Let's see. So that is the end of my presentation. If you want to keep up with more on Tendenci, follow the Tendenci blog, blog.tendenci.com. We post all sorts of updates about Tendenci, but also we try to post things about managing nonprofit websites and nonprofit technology and all that good stuff. So follow that there. If you are a Tendenci client, be sure to sign up for the Tendenci newsletter. We'll email you out about upcoming trainings and new features and all kinds of good stuff like that. That's at tendenci.com/newsletter.